Once upon a time, this factory in central Israel was a small kitchen selling a few jars of sun-dried tomato spread to delis in Israel. Then in 1992, founder Yoel Benish got a visit from Daniel Lubetzky, a recent Stanford Law graduate and tomato spread fan.
We were 3 people working at the time, me and another 2 workers, and he came with a jar that he bought in the supermarket, and he said, "This is yours?" I said, "Yes." He said, "This is I like the most. I never taste anything like that. Look, this is my idea." He present all the philosophy of Peaceworks.
Lubetzky had brought a proposal he wrote in college called Peaceworks. If Benish would buy his supplies and ingredients from Israel's often hostile neighbors instead of Portugal or Italy, he would sell the product in America.
Did you think he was a little crazy?
In the beginning, yes.
But Lubetzky, who grew up in Mexico, the son of a Holocaust survivor, made the case that trading with Arab and Muslim neighbors was not just good for peace, it was good business.
Because it's closer than Portugal to buy the glass from Egypt, but also the sun-dried tomatoes are fresher, the olives, the eggplant, the basil. You were also importing the basil from Italy. We found a farm in Uja, which is a Palestinian village.
Today, sales have grown to more than 1 million jars a year.
We sell in Whole Foods, we sell in a lot of natural stores, specialty stores, Lawns and Byerly's.
The social message is peace through business ties. Lubetzky has since started other much larger food businesses, but he calls Peaceworks a not-just-for-profit enterprise. He's channeled 5% of Peaceworks' profits into a grassroots group he started called One Voice, to raise the voice of moderates, he says.
We're moving from theory into action, and the first part of the action is actually visualizing what is it that the people are going to do, and then helping empower the people to actually start building a 2-state solution.
One Voice has several 100,000 signatures from supporters. Its young volunteers, Palestinian and Israeli, campaign for their vision of peace, an independent Palestine on land captured by Israel in the 1967 war. The 2 nations would share a capital in the historic city of Jerusalem. Also in the One Voice media campaign are films to fire up its mostly young supporters. This one imagines Israel and Palestine co-hosting the 2018 Soccer World Cup.
Do you think we'll have an independent Palestine? Not as I see the situation now.
But as they hit the pavement, video cameras in hand to make more films, One Voice's volunteers find a far more pessimistic reality.
Life is very bad here in Palestine, and the situation is deteriorating because of the wall, because of the settlements which are eating up our land.
In the West Bank city of Ramallah, there's anger over Jewish settlements built on land Israel captured in 1967, and the wall that Israel calls its security barrier. Also infighting in the Palestinian leadership.
There is a siege on the people. We've become 2 peoples, 2 lands, and we're taking a passive role in this. We were a people active and alive, but our politicians are standing in the way.
Israeli volunteers also met many skeptics. They too cited the bloody power struggle within the Palestinian territories between the Fatah party of President Mahmoud Abbas, which controls the larger West Bank, and the Islamist Hamas party, which now controls the Gaza Strip.
You have to look back. It goes back 4,000 years. It has nothing to do with politics. It's a jihad war. And who can we make peace with? Hamas? Fatah? What about Al-Qaeda?
Sadly, when I talk to Israeli groups or to American Jewish groups, they don't know that you exist. They don't see those eyes, they don't see the humanity of the people, because unfortunately the media doesn't show that to them. And I assume it's the same case for you, that you only see the worst of the Israeli side.
At a meeting of One Voice volunteers and supporters in the West Bank city of Nablus, Lubetzky said large majorities on both sides are moderates who support a 2-state solution, but each views the other as lacking the leadership to carry out a peace treaty.
I definitely think that we are swimming upstream, and it makes it very difficult for the vast majority of moderates who would benefit from connecting with one another and from meeting to be able to express themselves.
The growing tension has also made it difficult for Yoel Benish's business. His workers and many ingredients used to come directly from the West Bank until barriers and tight security put an end to it. Today, Benish works with Hani Jashan from an Arab family living within Israel's 1948 boundaries. They have ties to farmers in the West Bank as well as their own olive groves. If these men seem familiar, it's because their fathers traded with each other.
His father is a larger olive grower here in the area, so they had good relationship in the term of business.
So
He came to our house, he knows my family, he knows everything.
Today their relationship thrives, but it often has to do so quietly.
In the Palestinian areas, when things get hard, it's also hard here. I have Palestinian business associates, and during the hard times, you usually refrain from making your joint activities public.
Similarly, the venture's Israeli factory makes many products for other brands besides Peaceworks, but we were asked not to film the other brands for fear that the association might affect sales in the Israeli market.
This idea of trading with the Arabs is not very popular in Israel as well, right?
Yeah, you're right. And the reason we are working in spite of all the problems, is due to our belief that it will help eventually.
It's very important for this kind of business to exist, because that creates a channel of communication, now that the political communication practically doesn't exist. Also, when business is thriving, people's standard of living will go up, and I think it's imperative that the Palestinian people will get out of the economic blight they're facing. That's also very important to the Israelis, because we are neighbors.
Lubetzky says the forbidding political climate has made it difficult to scale up Peaceworks, so it could have a wider impact.
When the time comes, and the time is not going to be today, the minds are not ready. But if you start providing this content in 1 or 2 years, where you have that momentum, you're going to be able to then activate them and then get them to do the marches and do the street activations.
The One Voice group hopes things will change through dogged campaigning by younger Israelis and Palestinians.
Before I started Peaceworks, when I was in college, I remember one of my thesis advisors thought that I was naive and crazy and it could never be done, and gave me all the list of why it couldn't be done. And then eventually I did it. And it's a little bit more of a stable idea and more of an accepted idea now, but it wasn't 17 or 20 years ago. So I think sometimes it's good to be a little naive and to just be willing to take risks and to not know that you're crazy. Then when you look back, you can't believe you did it.
This year, One Voice will spend $1.4 million, money raised in part from the sale of food products, but also now from several Israeli, Arab, and American donors.